everyone, this is Absolute on Air, and today we're going to be talking about applying commercial awareness to keyword strategy. I'm Lewis, Senior Account Manager at Absolute Digital, and today I've got with me Stephen, who's Head of Business Intelligence, Andy, who's Head of SEO, and Alex, who's Senior Content Manager. So like I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about applying commercial awareness to keyword strategy today. So let's get straight into it. So the first section we have is what is commercial awareness and why is it important in keyword strategy? So I'll let Andy head off with this one.
Okay, so I think the first thing we need to define is what, like you said, what is commercial awareness? So commercial awareness is the understanding of how your business works and how it operates, and specifically in regards to how it works and how it makes money. So it's not just about how it works and the processes it uses, what services it provides. It's about how it functions to make money. So that's where it differs slightly from general industry knowledge, which a lot of people confuse the two terms, and there is a fair bit of overlap between them. But where it mainly differs is general industry knowledge could be understanding how to provide the service that you provide, or how to make a product, or whatever it might be, whereas commercial awareness is more around how your business actually makes money, what its goals are, and how you work towards achieving those goals so your business is profitable and grows. So that's why it's really important and comes into keyword strategy. And once you start looking at your keyword strategy, how it's really important to have commercial awareness overlaid over it, because it's got to drive that growth for your business. It's not just about big numbers, it's about pushing the growth and achieving your business's goals. So the keyword strategy is, to my mind, the most important element of SEO when you're looking at digital marketing, the SEO arm of digital marketing. So it underpins everything that you do as a business as part of SEO. So it's got to be right, and it's got to be tailored towards delivering your business's growth and delivering its goals and making your business more money. So that's that gives you a bit of an overview of commercial awareness and why it's important to keyword strategy. Essentially, it all boils down to making sure your business is growing and making more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, go on.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, Lewis. As Andy was saying, that obviously making sure that you're commercially aware within the content, from my point of view. Obviously, it all comes down to the keywords. So obviously, we'll talk about keyword strategy a little bit later on, but obviously, it's getting into making sure that you're using the right commercially intent keywords within content and with anything talking about your business online, and obviously being aware of what potential customers are going to be looking for. So having that commercial awareness works both ways. Not only do you need to know exactly what's going on with that business and industry, it's also being aware of what the users are wanting to find out and what their intent is.
Yeah, exactly. Hit the nail on the head there. I think a lot of people sometimes when they're doing their keyword strategy, they'll think from their point of view, but not always think from the customer or their target audience point of view. I think it's really important to obviously look at that when you're putting together your keyword strategy. Obviously, search volume plays a part, but it's not all about the search volume, as we'll talk about a little bit later on. It's about kind of driving the right users to the website through the terms that are going to make them convert effectively. So yeah, completely agree with what you've said there.
Yeah, you've got to understand who your customers are, and what are their wants and needs, because it's different customer groups going to have different wants and needs, and you're going to have different customer group. You could potentially have a different customer group to a competitor that's providing a similar service. They might be targeting a different customer group than you are, because there's slight nuances in the service that they're providing or the products they're providing. So you really need to understand who are your customers and what are their wants and needs, so you can make sure you're speaking to them in what you're doing with your marketing. So that then will then bring them to your website, and then you're going to get your sales, your leads, whatever your goals are. You're going to drive your goals.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with the commercially intent keywords, also they're generally people that are going to be at the stage of investigating and researching before they make that decision. So they're sort of slightly a little bit further along of the funnel, but they're going from obviously knowing what they want to find out about, depending on whatever that product is, whether it's you know, a product like a phone or device or a service that can help them. They're obviously going to be at that stage where they want to learn a little bit more about what that is and start finding out who's out there that can help them with that that search. And obviously it's the job of that particular business to be able to put themselves front and center of that customer, say, hey, look, we can help you with that, and show you exactly, you know, the information that you need to find out, to make the next decision whether or not you're going to then invest your time and money into whatever it is that they're selling.
Exactly. Don't know if you had anything to add to that one, Stephen, or all the points been covered?
Oh, we can go into commercial awareness and business stuff all day long. I mean, as a kind of a couple of recap, it's the difference. Headline is that instead of it going for everyone, you're looking at what has the right intent that's going to get you a conversion, going to get you a sale. So it's less about reach, it's less about what your competitors are doing, it's less about, you know, just the general data. It's just matching up. Does that term, does that keyword sync to leading to a direct action on my site? So rather than it being how to, what if, you know, information and stuff, it's more about, you know, the buy online, the transactional bit, that high value bit of term that's going to actually resonate, and then building a strategy around that.
Exactly. So what I really want to talk about next is kind of how to build commercial awareness when you're not part of a company. So a bit about kind of the common mistakes that companies make and need to avoid, and how businesses can avoid them mistakes when applying commercial awareness to their keyword strategy as well. So I don't know if there's any mistakes specifically, Alex, that you see that businesses kind of make that they need to start avoiding.
Yeah, I mean, it generally it's avoiding having too many keywords that don't have a lot of intent behind them, because it's all very well targeting certain keywords because they're either popular or they're slightly relevant to their industry. But if they're not showing any value to what the customer is looking for, then yeah, they're gonna miss out on that opportunity. They may bring in traffic, but it may not necessarily be the right type of traffic. So obviously from our point of view as being marketers, that obviously to build that commercial awareness, especially with industries that we're not a part of or we may not have much experience with, for example, it obviously comes down to being able to research heavily into that and understanding what it is that industry does, what particular businesses are doing within that industry, and what it is they're trying to provide to their customers. So knowing where to look and what publications and newsletters to follow is generally a good point of call, because that way you can get the information sent straight to you in your inbox, or if there's a trade magazine, something like that. Social media accounts, knowing which influencers and experts to follow online, because there's so many out there and it's very easy to pick up that information. So it's all about keeping up to date with that industry news, any changes within that industry, and then building that commercial awareness. And obviously it's all very well having a general awareness, but you know, anybody can have a general awareness and say, okay, yeah, I know a little bit about the wellness industry, for example. But obviously if you want a specific awareness of how customers are looking into that, what they're looking for, what they want to buy, what they want to invest in, then it's going to need to have more commercialness and more detail there that's specific to a certain industry or business to really help them, because otherwise you're just going to be bringing in traffic that sort of doesn't really need or want to convert at that stage.
Yeah, definitely. I think another mistake that they make quite often is, whether it's like an agency, a marketing agency, or an internal team, not being as transparent as possible in the initial stages as well. A lot of the business owners aren't going to be the ones doing the keyword research, for example. So, and the people that, you know, are doing the keyword research aren't always going to have an understanding of where they want the business to be in a year's time, or the kind of main areas that people are wanting to target within the business. So being as transparent as possible as well helps to obviously drive that commercial intent when doing the keyword research. You know what areas are needed to be targeted the most, and then you can go away and obviously look at what users are going to be typing in to kind of find them services or them products specifically. So I think that's quite a big mistake that people tend to make as well, just not being transparent enough in the early stages to get that keyword research right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
go on,
Sorry, go on,
go on.
Alex.
Oh, I was just about to say that with the initial keyword research, obviously, depending on that business, if they're been doing any sort of marketing strategy before, or if they're completely new to it, obviously they'll have different ideas on what they think they should be going after. And obviously, it's the job from our point of view to show why certain keywords are great, why certain ones aren't so great in trying to bring in relevant traffic that can convert, rather than going for, oh, okay, this one's got the highest search volume, so we definitely need to go after it. But if it's got no intent behind it, so for example, if it's someone not looking for something that's the best or the top 10 washing machines, or looking for certain services near them or in a location, those sort of have more unique intent compared to just a general thing about washing machines, using that example, don't know why. And then that way they can drive down. So obviously if somebody's at the beginning of the start of keyword research, obviously you want to look at those large volume keywords, but then obviously drill them down further and have more long tail variants that have definitely got more investigative intent, and what they actually want to bring in, what type of customer that they actually want to bring into the site.
Yeah, so similar to what I was going to say, so I was just going on from your point, Lewis. Absolutely, you've got to understand what the business goals are, and yeah, most of the time business goals are going to be make more money because that's what businesses exist to do. But you need to understand how they want to make more money. Is there a particular product or service they want to push? Is the one that they don't want to push? Who is their target customer? Who is their customer? Because they will be different groups. You need to understand what their goals are, so you can deliver that keyword research and make sure you're targeting the right keywords that are going to bring the right people to their site. So like Alex just mentioned a moment ago, one of the biggest mistakes that I see in keyword research, and one most common, is people just pick the largest volume keyword. They just go, oh, we'll pick that one because it's sort of related to what we do and it's got the biggest number next to it. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You've got to have that commercial awareness. You've got to have that thought process to connect it to your goals and thinking about what type of customer that's going to bring to your site. It's great ranking #1 for a keyword, but if it's going to bring you loads of traffic of people that aren't going to buy your product, what's the point? You've just spent a lot of time and effort to rank #1 to get all that traffic, and it's not done anything for you because they're not spending any money with you. So you've absolutely got to make sure that you've got the right keywords to bring the right customers. For example, a more simple example, let's just say an e-commerce site trying to sell things. I'm going to take a keyword that has high sales intent that might only get 50 searches a month, than an informational keyword with 2,000 searches a month any day of the week, because that's 50 sales. Those 2,000 people that are searching for information, you might get one sale out of two. It's not to say it's useless and you shouldn't have any of them, because there are different stages of the journey that you want to think about, and that's a subject that we'll probably get into a bit later. But in generally, especially if you're thinking bottom of your funnel content, so you're thinking your transactional pages, your service pages, your product pages, the pages that you want to be making money, you've got to make sure those keywords match up to it, and you're not just picking the biggest search volume number because it's a nice big number. It's not about how many people are searching for that. It's about how many people are searching for that will buy from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think that leads nicely into kind of another question on that topic, which is how to complete keyword research around new commercial products that may not actually have search volume yet. So obviously not being able to use search volume as an indicator for how well that keyword's performing, but how would you potentially go about doing that keyword research when there's zero search volume?
So one way you can, I'm going to jump on this one. I'm going to take a slightly different
I'll let you go, Stephen.
All right. So you can benefit if you're using a cross-channel approach. So within paid media, you can leverage paid media to kind of be as a fishing exercise to find those relevant terms which are going to be useful for that product. So within ads like Google Ads, you can use like dynamic search ads, which will essentially crawl your website, look for relevant queries, and then Google will find you those queries that it thinks is most relevant to that product. And then from that, as an initial fishing exercise, you can start to see what Google's classifying your site, classifying your information as. And then off the back of that, you can then start to see, well, this is what Google sees as my product. Therefore, this is how I should probably tailor my messaging or tailor my content strategy, because this is how Google's reading it. And then I can use that as part of my broader content and commercial strategy of which keywords to go for, because that way you're letting Google help you that initial steer, and then you can bring it into your wider commercial approach of how is it I'm going to define my product, and more importantly, how is it that Google is defining my product, and what do I need to change before I start just diving into picking my right terms to use.
Yeah,
so that's a great example of using multiple services and to support each other in terms of, because using PPC and paid ads, you can drive traffic quite quickly, whereas SEO tends to take time to build. So you can drive traffic quite quickly and then start getting the insights from your PPC to apply to your SEO. So another way of approaching it, so as a pure SEO way of assuming you weren't doing any paid ads alongside, it can be tricky if there's no search for it. If it's, let's say it's a brand new product or service that there's been no previous offering of, so it can be difficult to find. Or potentially as well, on the other hand, it might not be brand new, it might be quite niche and specialized, in which case the search volumes might be quite low, so you're not really getting much data because all the search volumes are quite low. So it's about gaining in some industry knowledge and putting yourself in the shoes of your potential customers. If your potential customers, what would they be searching for when they are looking for something that provides what your product provides for them? So it's not just about them searching for your product, and this applies to other products as well, not just niche or brand new ones. It's not just about them searching for that product, it's about them searching for the problems that your product solves for them. So not everybody that is a potential customer for you is going to be searching for your product name. They might be searching for try and think of an example now off the top of my head. Let's say you have a new software system that improves warehousing by 20%. It improves warehouse efficiency by 20%, let's say. They're probably not going to be searching for that software name, but they're likely to be searching for things like how to make my warehouse more efficient, which is more of an informational search, but it's someone that is looking for a solution to a problem that you provide. So it's about capturing those as well. So thinking a bit wider, when especially if you've got, like you say, these products that don't have any keywords with search volume specifically targeted to them, start thinking a bit wider as well. What problems does this solve for my customers? So what problem, if they've got this problem, what might they be searching for as a solution? I need to be ranking for that because my product provides the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the way I think it is the right way to do it in terms of for a new product launch. As exactly what you said, not trying to repeat it, but yeah, if there's any sort of informational based or tier sort of content that you can look at to drive people to it, and then they're going to start seeing the name of the product. And as time goes on, that's then going to obviously increase the visibility and the brand awareness of your brand and your product. And then slowly you'll start to see, hopefully, more searches come around that product name, and you'll be able to kind of grow it that way. But definitely agree with kind of the transactional and the informational intent content to start with. The other thing that you can do, if it's not kind of a brand new product, sometimes just the tools that you use won't always pick up search volume around sort of certain keywords, but they are actually being typed in. It's just like a very low amount. So having a little look at kind of like Google Search Console impressions or impressions on other tools and stuff as well helps to give you a bit of an idea of are you actually gaining impressions around them terms? If so, then the likelihood is obviously people are typing them in or variants of them terms. It might just be obviously a lower amount on a monthly basis, so that can kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where to potentially target as well. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, I think you can look at your
That's all
you
right,
can look
carry
at
on.
your competitors as well. So If you do have, I mean, if it's a brand new product that's new to the industry, you might not have any competitors providing it. But if you do have competitors that are providing a similar product, look at them. You can normally get a reasonable idea of what type of terms they're targeting by looking at their pages to see what they're doing on their pages. So have a look at them with a bit of a critical eye, look through their page content and try and determine, okay, what are they specifically, what are they trying to target? Because I say, if they're a competitor and you know they're doing quite well in the niche, then they're doing something right. So look and try and learn from that. They might not be doing everything right, in which case that gives you an opportunity to beat them. But if you do have a competitor that you know is doing okay and has a similar product, have a look at what they're doing. You know, you can normally pick up what type of keywords they're looking at targeting on their pages by checking the metas of their pages and checking what type of content they've got in the headings and so on, and having a look at what sort of internal links they're using. It can give you an idea. It's not perfect by any means, but if you are in that point where you're struggling to get keyword data because it's low volume or it's very niche or it's brand new, it can give you a bit of a guide and a bit of a direction to get you going.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's also about making use of what Google are showing to people. So thinking more of a case from what are Google going to show someone that starts searching for this type of thing. So obviously then you can build that into the content. So for example, featured snippets, or people also ask query boxes. That stuff on the page is going to be full of long tail variants and zero, or a lot of them will be a lower volume or zero volume keywords that obviously are still answering a question, and they're very specific to what that user's asking for. And generally that way, if your content is optimized around those and is sort of grouping together lots of different terms under an umbrella term. So for example, you could have a page on one product and then have all of these questions within that are answering that question. So if someone's looking to, for example, compare two different car makes, and that's their query, so they're looking to compare a Ford Focus with a Ford Fiesta, for example, they're already thinking about buying one of those things, but they want to start looking at comparing them. So then you can have that in the content to show that you can answer that question, that that you can help them on their journey, and then hopefully that if you are targeting it in the right way, it's something that your business can help them with, and that they eventually look to convert. So yeah, having to think about what your competitors are doing, as Andy was saying, because whatever they're doing well for is going to work, and what is actually showing on the cert pages, so that you can start adapting things and say, right, what questions do we want to answer for this particular product or service? What are actual real people looking for, rather than what a business thinks that a customer wants to know.
Definitely. So the next thing that I want to go into a little bit more is kind of how can businesses balance search volume and commercial intent in their keyword strategy. So a little bit more about kind of the common mistakes that businesses make when trying to balance search volume and commercial intent, and how businesses can adapt their keyword research in response to changes to the market as well. So I'll hand this one over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, well, many thanks. So again, it kind of goes, back to that total volume versus specificity. Like, in the sense, if you've got that super niche product that's so niche and it's got zero volume behind it, well, your strategy is going to be so defined that you're going to hit that ceiling. And then the flip side of that is, if it's super generic, well, you're just going to invite loads of traffic in. If you're doing it in a paid world, you're going to spend loads and not get any return. And if it's an SEO, you're going to invest a lot of time and not get a return on that one there. So generally, the balancing act is, is that kind of sync? Is it right for the product or the service? Does it match to my audiences? Is it have a bit of reach? And is it in that kind of mid-level sweet spot in terms of like competition? And then also you can apply it with, are my competitors already using that if it's in an existing market space? Because, two sides of that coin is, one, if they are, well, then you know that there's a reason they're going for it, so I should invest into it. And if they're not, it becomes an opportunity of, I could potentially capture that and put it into my mixture. I mean, in terms of the mistakes people generally make, is going for all or one, like that kind of scattergun approach where you're just trying out everything without finding what sticks. where a better approach is to apply that 80-20 rule of, your top terms, your top keywords that you're going to focus on, and then you use that to leverage your campaigns out. I mean, the other one is just to say, look, I know one in the past where they wanted to go for like mobile apps, and the term was like business phones, business mobiles they wanted to shoot for. And that's such a big term to go for, and it makes sense, that was it. But there's massive players you're up against. So to go for that direct straight away was like just burning through. Whereas something that was more alternatives of, or how to, or why, or, like something that was a bit of a second tier, but a longer term, was actually a smarter way of being able to tackle that approach rather than just going for like the big guns straight away. So another mistake is trying to exceed your reach early on, where you should kind of look at actually how much resources I have available versus how tricky it is to get that ranking. Because if it's super, super tricky, you're never really going to get it there. But if you can balance it and find out that nice little sweet spot, then it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, completely agree. Like you say, I think it is a case of looking at the achievability of what you're looking to target as well a little bit, in terms of not just commercial intent but keywords in general in that fact. But yeah, definitely not kind of trying to overreach with the keywords you're targeting, because if you've got a smaller budget, you're going to be targeting them for a long time and not really seeing any results in it, whereas you're much better targeting kind of some of the more niche accurate terms that are going to actually, you're going to see results quicker, and you're going to obviously be in a better position to take advantage of them as well. And kind of leading on to the point of about adapting the keyword research in response to changes as well. I think a lot of people kind of have a strategy and stick to it. So they're like, okay, these are our target keywords, this is what we've got for the initial stages, and then they'll just continue to kind of put resource into them areas even if they're not seeing it working. I think COVID and over that period's a massive kind of example of how keyword trends changed a lot in that period. And if businesses weren't kind of reacting to that and making changes to their strategy, a lot of them potentially may have been kind of left in the dark a little bit and saw declines in whether that's conversions or traffic to the website. So it's a case of kind of keeping up to date with everything that's happening in the industry and the trends around it, and making sure you're kind of adjusting your strategy around it. That's not say change your keywords every week, because obviously that's not going to be the right thing to do. But if you are noticing kind of difference or a sway in terms of what users are typing in or the intent around it, then that needs to be taken into account with your strategy as well.
Yeah, and just a follow on in terms of adaptation. So again, just one point within the world of paid is exact is no longer exact, or it hasn't been for a long time now. And Google use like a fuzzy logic in terms of like their choice of keywords. And it's more also just within the kind of premise of Google and organic. It's more about the theme and the semantics of it rather than being hamstrung on a particular term, because Google might take that term and think, actually, that term, it's got multiple meanings for what I perceive it to be. And then this other term, which you don't think is relevant, actually Google's putting more weight behind it because it's putting two and two together in terms of like the intent of that term rather than just the specific keyword you're after. So there's, you have to kind of adapt to what Google is doing in its platform as well as the bigger market in terms of, just global effects going on. You have to kind of think, well, how is the platform going to change and adapt, and I need to change with it rather than just being stuck up on just keeping one or two terms and just relying on them to drive your business.
I mean, it's part of what being commercially aware is all about, isn't it? It's, if you're not keeping an eye on what's changing around you and relevant to that business or industry, then you're going to start missing out on opportunities left, right, and centre. So as they said, during COVID was a prime example where all of a sudden, people found themselves at home and they're having to look differently and their shopping habits completely changed. And obviously those companies that weren't quick to adjust to that or didn't already have a setup in terms of their strategy, in terms of what they were of helping those customers find things, because they're now only able to, for example, get delivery at home rather than going into a store, that they'll get left behind very quickly. So if you're not staying commercially aware of any sort of changes within an industry, there could be like a big regulatory change. For example, in the finance industry, there could be a big change on how something works, and how a lender, for example, can present information. If that information then isn't in the content, or is being ignored completely, even though there's users out there trying to look for information about that, then it all presents missed opportunities. So it's about thinking like a customer, really, and thinking, right, if I was going to want to buy this particular product, or if I was going to start add this service, what would I want to know and what would I be looking for before I made that decision? And then you can sort of find things that way, as well as what's already being looked for, really. But yeah, just obviously keeping on with the trends, really. Google Trends is good for that, obviously, because it shows you what historically people are looking at. Obviously, seasonality is another one that it can be a mistake, that you could be targeting things and you know, it's not relevant at that time, or it's completely, you know, old news at that point. So yeah, there's various different things on it, and it's obviously specific to different industries, but yeah, just keeping a finger on the pulse is definitely the way.
Yeah, you've also got to consider how, because sometimes Google will change how it views keywords as well. So I was just talking, it reminded me of a client I worked with a couple of years back, where they were ranking their target keyword. It was going great for them. They're a specialist pension provider. They're ranking, hovering around position 1 and 2 for around a year, so ranking really well. And then all of a sudden, overnight, they just dropped to page 8, and it's just, you know, a bit of a blow, like what's gone off there. So diving in and checking everything, you know, there's no manual actions, what's happened there. And then just look at the search results, and Google had just completely changed the search results. So it had gone from a commercial type keyword where everything that was ranking was a service offering, to informational, and now nothing above page 4 was commercial. It was all informational content. So Google had just decided, whereas that previously that keyword was commercial related and it was going to provide services for people searching for that, it decided that that's not what people wanted when they're searching for that. So it switched it and provided information. So we had to completely review our keyword targeting and redo our strategy, because Google had flipped and decided, no, I'm going to change the intent behind that keyword. So because of that, we then had to change our content, change our targeting as well. So you need to keep an eye on what Google's doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, COVID is an example of that, because when that happened, they then very quickly, with paid media, it was, they sort of blacklisted certain keywords, and they like, you couldn't anything to do with COVID, anything like that, it would say, yeah, it's not going to rank any of that. It's not something that they want, because obviously there was business out there that you know, to do with PPE and all that sort of thing. So there was always that intention there. So obviously they changed things very quickly to say, right, you can no longer rank for that. And obviously then people, business having to change the way that they look to things, because as I said, they've made a decision. So keeping up with what they're doing, because at the end of the day, it is they're one of the biggest, or the biggest at the moment, search engines. So it's important to see what they're doing in the background as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that sums it up nicely. It's just extremely important to, obviously, like I say, be able to adapt with changes in the market and changes to Google or whatever search engine and you're trying to target. So yeah, extremely important. But I think that leads us nicely onto the next question, which is kind of talking a little bit about how can businesses measure the success of their keyword strategy in relation to their commercial goals. So a little bit about kind of how what metrics businesses should track to measure the success of their keyword strategy, and then some of the common challenges businesses face when they're trying to measure the success of the strategy as well. So I'll hand this one over to you, Andy.
Yeah, so I think I'll address this one in a bit of a reversal and address the challenges they can face first. So yeah, one of the by far the biggest challenges when trying to measure the success of your keyword strategy is it can be really difficult to see which keywords are working for you, specifically because things like Google Analytics, a lot of that information is due to privacy settings on the internet, isn't shared with the user. So you go into your Google Analytics, it's great for telling you what's going on your website, where users are coming from, what their pages they're visiting, how long they're spending on it, and all that kind of information. It's brilliant for. But the information that you won't get, and I would bet a lot of people have tried it, is if you've not and you've got Google Analytics set up on your site, just go into Analytics and click through to look at your organic traffic in detail, and you'll see a lot of, it gives you a keyword field, but it gives you not set, because that's blocked by privacy law. So it can be really difficult to actually get that information, because Google's not sharing it with us. So how do you know how well that keyword's performing? Is that keyword bringing in traffic that's converting? Well, you can't see in Google Analytics, at least. You can't make those direct connections, unfortunately, which is really frustrating. You can't directly say this keyword brought this person to my site, then went on and purchased something. You can infer, and that's what you have to do. So that's going on to the other part of the question. How do you track the success of your keyword strategy? You've got to gather the data from various points and essentially infer that it's moving in the right direction, that multiple ports are all moving in the right direction, so they're influencing each other. So, for example, you can use Search Console to see improvements in clicks from searching certain keywords. That tells you the keywords that are driving traffic to your site. If then, and you can even see what pages they're going to on your site. If you then match that up with Analytics and see, traffic going to those pages is resulting in sales, it's a pretty safe bet to understand those keywords are driving sales. Now, you're not going to be able to match exactly which keyword, because you're not going to have only one keyword going to a page, or at least you shouldn't. You're going to have a group of keywords all going to one page and so on. So you're not going to know exactly which one, but it helps you understand these keywords driving traffic to this part of my site, which is converting. So these keywords are driving those conversions. As Stephen touched on earlier, using PPC, that gives us a bit more information, a bit more direct information, and it's a pretty safe bet to assume the keywords that are providing sales through PPC ads are going to be providing sales if we're ranking for them organically as well. So they're going to push through, and if they're, people visiting your site from a paid ad are converting, say people visiting your site from organic searching the same thing are likely to be converting as well. But ultimately, the ultimate measure is, like we kind of said at the beginning, your keyword research and your keyword strategy, it's a means to an end, it's a tool, it's there to deliver your business goals. So are you getting closer, or are you achieving your business goals? Are you moving towards those business goals? If yes, then your keyword strategy and the marketing that you're doing is delivering the results to get you there. If no, then it kind of doesn't matter how successful, inverted in brackets, the keyword strategy is in terms of driving traffic or rankings. If it's not delivering your business goals, it's not working and it needs to change. So ultimately, it comes down to, are you getting closer to your goals? Are you achieving them or past them? If so, then what you're doing, and assuming that's the results are coming from organic traffic or paid traffic if you're running paid ads, then it's working, it's getting you there, and you need to set further goals, to your next goals to push towards. But if you're not getting towards those goals, if you're ranking great for all these keywords but you're not getting closer to achieving your goals, then you're ranking for the wrong keywords, and you need to mix it up and you need to change things up.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I completely agree. I think some of the biggest challenges people face are kind of GDPR based and cookie policy based, not getting all of the data that they would, want necessarily. But there are ways around it, and you've explained that really well. So I won't go into that in too much more detail. But yeah, just having a little look at kind of clicks from search results, and maybe there's pages that are getting actually a lot of traffic, and you can see clicks coming from them pages, but they're not converting well, and that gives you an idea then, right, maybe you need to relook at the strategy for them pages, because you might not be targeting the right keywords for that page, and it gives you an idea of maybe just going back to the drawing board and refreshing yourself and looking at a different opportunities on them pages, and reviewing that in a couple of months time or 6 months time or so can also help you put your next strategy together, as well as seeing what's doing well. So but yeah, completely agree with what you've said.
Yeah, you can also look at those pages as well. It's not necessarily that the wrong keywords are ranking for those pages. Maybe their page doesn't have the right next step for the user based on what they're trying. If you're ranking well for some keywords, and then if the traffic's then going to a page that isn't converting well, it's worth, especially, well, check the keywords first. I mean, if they're terrible keywords, then yeah, change everything. But if those keywords are okay, have relevance to your business, it's worth looking at the page to go, okay, we're ranking well for this. What's the next step for a user? So based on these keywords, what is the user trying to achieve? So what's the next step for them? And am I providing that? And importantly, am I providing that in a way that is easy for the user to action? So you can move them along that commercial journey, that process for them. Not everybody that's going to come to your site is going to be ready to buy right now. And they shouldn't be, and that's fine. So it's identifying if you are picking up that traffic and it's not converting, it's then understanding, okay, what does that traffic specifically want? What's the next step for them to get them closer to converting? And how do I provide that for them? And you can look at the content on your page to make sure you're providing that and moving them along. Obviously, it depends on exactly what your offering is. So it's more common with larger, like higher value items that the purchasing journey might take a bit longer. So if you, for example, let's say sell stationery on a website, you're probably not going to have that longer commercial journey. So if you're getting traffic that isn't converting, then that question is why. But if you're, let's say, selling furniture or holidays, let's say holidays, users are probably going to have multiple steps and multiple touch points with your site. So you need to identify, and this sort of relates into commercial awareness as a whole as well, what are they trying to achieve at that point? Not everybody is going to be ready to buy right now, but they're still valuable customers. If that customer is just window shopping, just getting an idea, providing good service for them, providing the next steps for them, providing the information they're looking for, is still helping them, is still supporting them, it's still providing them what they need, and it's more likely to move them along. And you may be able to move them all the way along into buying in that one section. You may not, they may go away. But if they've had a good experience with your site and found what they needed, they're more likely to come back when they're on the next step of their journey. So it's sorry, a bit long-winded way of going around. It's not always a case of if you're not converting, it's the wrong keywords. Maybe your page isn't quite, I won't say the wrong content, because if it's the wrong content, you won't rank for those keywords. But maybe it's not got quite the right next step for the user. Maybe you're trying to convert them too early, and that user at that point of their journey isn't ready for a sale, and you're trying to push them into a sale. Maybe the next step is pushing them into something a bit different. It's providing them a bit more information, or signing them up for a newsletter, or something a bit different, not necessarily a sale there, but that still adds value to them.
Yeah, definitely agree. And not to go too off topic, but looking at the user experience of the page as well, you might be driving users to the website, to the page, which is great. But if that page is, completely different to other pages on the website that are converting really well, then it might be a case of having a little look at how they're laid out, and, using a similar type of layout or making similar changes to the page that might not be converting. So definitely, like I say, it doesn't mean that the keywords are wrong, but that's kind of the first step I would look at, just to make sure that you are definitely targeting the right ones, and then go to them other steps after. But yeah, do definitely agree with what you're saying.
And obviously, since Google brought in the helpful content update, it's all about being as helpful as possible for the user. If you could be you could be targeting the right keywords, but if the page itself either isn't answering those questions in enough depth, providing enough information, isn't doing what the top ranking pages are trying to do as well, then yeah, it's gonna have a hard time with being front and center for them when they start looking for the particular queries. So yeah, but if there's a particular page that is struggling, it's not a case of going back and starting from scratch. It's just a case of going through and adapting and adding to where the intent can be added to, really, and say, right, if we're targeting this particular keyword that will help them compare two options, for example, that they're stuck between buying. What more information can we give here to really help them on here, to stop them from sort of bouncing on the page and going elsewhere, or never coming back, as Andy was saying. So yeah, it's obviously, from a concept point of view, just making it as simple to go through, easy to understand, and show them they're already in the right place. If they are ready to convert at this moment, then they've got everything they need to do so, rather than go elsewhere because of another reason, that you either didn't answer the question enough, or, as Lewis said, that the page experience itself was poor, and they've got a really slow site for some reason. But yeah, it's all about just being as helpful for the user once they are on your page as possible.
Sure. So the next section I wanted to talk about, we could talk about as for probably hours on end, but a little bit to do with the rise of AI technology, and should you be utilizing the rise of AI technology as part of the commercial content strategy. So a little bit about the ways that you could use AI tools such as ChatGPT to be beneficially used, and what are the advantages of utilizing these tools as well, and should you be kind of using them solely as part of your strategy or using it alongside other tools. So I'll let you jump into this one, Steve.
Yeah, cheers. I mean, to use it solely, bit risky. Worth a shot. You could let the AI just do it all for you. Should you be using it? Yes. Is it beneficial? Yes. Should you solely use it? Probably not right now. Maybe in about 5-10 years when it's like fully, there. Tools like this. I mean, we already are using tools. We're using lots of paid tools for our keyword research in the first place. You're just paying out for it. Whereas this, I mean, these open AIs that come in, and there's paid ones a bit more advanced, but it's just an extra perspective. So if you looked at one tool, that would tell you one version of the truth. If you looked at two tools and they gave you slightly different results, now you've got essentially two versions, of the story. If I looked at a third tool and it gave me slightly different results, but I saw a bit of overlap between the three of them, I started to get a clearer picture of what my keywords are looking like and what the overall is, rather than getting biased into just one area. So we already are using tools, and these are just an extra tool for your arsenal in terms of what's most relevant and what the machine is able to learn and how it's going to grow. So the more you get, it's basically more data points, more touch points, and a better perspective, like a better reference that you have for when you're doing your research. It gives you ideas, prompts, for ideas you never thought of before. You can look at changing up different approaches, changing up different ways of doing your research. And kind of the main advantage is it's a time saver in terms of, giving you that starting gun in terms of what's there. It allows you to think outside the box if you're limited in terms of your research ideas or themes, because you can ask the tool, give me 10 ideas for this, or what's the top 100 different permutations for this particular term or, keyword, or you can even ask it things about trends or changes, what's happening right now, in the last couple of years in terms of, new tech or what's going on. And it can tell you that story. You can create that back and forth relationship with that tool. You teach it, it will give you what it's statistically seeing. And from that, you've got more ammunition to work with and more touch points, that will give you a better informed decision for how you're going to do your research. But yeah, if you were to solely rely on it and just take the human element away, I don't think we're ready for that yet. But yeah, it's definitely one, that's good to be in your back pocket to work with.
For sure, yeah. Like I say, I agree. I don't think for keyword research it's the best in terms of like ChatGPT as an example, but they're obviously extremely beneficial for actually creating the content once the keyword research is done. So kind of expanding on different subtopics that should be included within it, or getting an idea of what's performing and what you should potentially be including within the content. So definitely think using them as part of the content strategy is beneficial, and will continue to be more and more beneficial as time goes on as well, but would be using it kind of alongside your own knowledge and other potential tools that you may have already been using. But yeah, for sure, they're definitely beneficial.
I mean, with the finding keywords and using it as a tool to aid and assist with discovery at the start of trying to look for those terms. Obviously, it's great for that, but it's obviously limited because of the data set stopping in, was it end of 2021? So obviously, it's keeping in mind that anything that potentially it's showing you is out of date unless you're using plugins to bring in web search and all the rest of it. So that's where, as Stephen was saying, that using it just solely and saying, right, this is the answer that ChatGPT has given me, so this has to be, the full truth, and there's no more research I need to do, then yeah, you could be falling into a trap really, because obviously it might not be showing you everything there. Obviously, it is limited in its data set at this point. So obviously that will change at some point very soon. And eventually it will become flawless. I think we're all expecting at some point that will happen. But yeah, using it alongside your usual way of doing keyword research, it just helps to speed up the situation. And obviously, if you get stuck on anything, or be able to quickly find out, I wonder what the intent is around, this particular area that business is looking at, and help you sort of start that brainstorming session from there, and be able to quickly identify where you can go with the content or with any sort of strategy. So yeah, I mean, it's unavoidable at the end of the day. Anybody that's not using it is missing out. Anybody that's using it or overly using it in terms of going 100% automated, then yeah, they're it's not quite there, as Stephen said, but it's finding that balance with using the tool.
Sure.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add on to that point, so I agree with what you're saying. So where I expect it to be going is, I think tools like ChatGPT, I'm not a huge fan of using for keyword research, as we've touched on a few points, and there's a few bits that we utilize them for, and I think we touched on a bit in one of our previous podcasts about ChatGPT and the rise of AI in terms of use it can get. But where I expect it to be going in the future is to be integrated into existing tools. So most people in the digital marketing sphere will have heard of tools like SEMrush, probably one of the most popular. Where I expect it to go is to be integrated into things like that, kind of like what Google's trying to do with search, what Microsoft's done with Bing, in terms of integrating it into the existing tools and platforms, so it adds extra what's the word I'm looking for, extra my mind's gone blank now, extra sort of strength into those tools, extra utility into those tools and how they work. So that's where I expect it to go, and that's where I believe you'll start getting the most value out of using these AI tools in things like keyword research, is once it starts integrating with these existing tools, and works in concert with them to utilize their info and their data, but it helps support with the analysis for you from those tools data sets.
Yeah, I mean, you can be sure that existing tools, everybody's aware of what's going on with AI at the moment. They're not gonna want to lose their position as the number one place for marketers to go, for example, to look for keyword research. So SEMrush, for example, there's no way they're going to ignore not trying to implement AI into what they've already got. And it will be the same with every other tool. They're all going to want to see how they can adapt and use it to improve their tools. So it could be the case that you may not change the tools that you use. It's just that the tools that you are currently using are going to become way more advanced and even better than before. And obviously that could also mean that the price point changes, but obviously we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. There's loads of companies already sort of either already with plugins out or investing in AI. So many companies couldn't list them all off. But as you were saying, it likely is going to be a case that there is going to be integration between tools in the future, and that's kind of the way I think most people do see it going. But that's just going to be more beneficial and put more strength to the tools in the long run. So yeah, I think, like I say, that summed the podcast up really nicely. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Absolute on Air, and talking a little bit about the commercial awareness and applying it to your strategy. As always, the podcast will be available, so have a little look out on Twitter and LinkedIn for our next episode or any of the previous episodes that have already been released. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Andy, Stephen and Alex, and we'll speak to you on the next one.